Alright, what's up guys? It's Will here with King's Cards. Today, I'm going to be bringing you my Floowandereeze deck profile. This is going to be for post Maze of Memory, leading into Phantom Nightmare. The deck might change a few cards post Phantom Nightmare, just because I want to be able to combat the fire decks a little bit better. But I do believe that this list that I'm playing right here for this kind of weird little 3-week format is going to be the best way that you can play Flu on a budget. Now, of course, you're going to be missing out on cards like Triple Tactics Thrust, just because that card still isn't affordable post reprint. It was short printed Maze of Memories. I believe they're still sitting at like $45 to $50 a piece right now, and you could most likely build this entire deck for the cost of just one of those Thrust. I would say probably a little bit more. This is probably a $55, $60 deck, but for the cost of that $55 to $60, you're getting a very, very powerful deck, something that plays into the meta very well, a powerful shifter deck. And I do think that this deck has a slot in the meta, maybe not being the best shifter deck in the room, because I do think that Cash is probably the better shifter deck, but that deck just is not cost efficient for people on a budget, even with the announced reprints and Rarity Collection 2 for Rysoth. That card's still a little expensive. I believe Fenrir is still sitting in between the $20 to $25 price range, so for the cost of a playset of Fenrir's, you could just go ahead and pick this deck up. So the one thing that I do like the most about this deck is that it kind of breaks and bends the rules a little bit of how I commonly deck build and choose my decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think this deck is just genuinely unfair. I think everything that this deck does and its win conditions are just unfair. Now, people may not like the win conditions that this deck have. Maybe people say this deck without Shifter is nothing. Well, Shifter is legal here, so we're going to play it, and we're going to try and get as many wins as we can off of it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the list. Like I said, I didn't go through TCG Player, do like a penny by penny kind of overview of this deck, just because the way to do that is going to be different for everybody, because somebody like 10 people could go and watch this video, go buy all the copies of Rabinas, and that's going to take the Rabinas from like 95 cents to $1.50. But either way around, you're getting kind of like that same general price range, and some people might have certain staples, some people might not already have those. But we'll go ahead and take a look at it. So for the Flubirds, first 3 through Arbina, I think this is pretty standard. This is the best card in the deck. This is your sole like one card combo. I guess you could call it a combo. But yeah, so I think everybody knows at this point. You go normal Rabina, you're gonna go search your Eagle. So of course we're gonna play 3 of this because this is the one that searches your big birds out. But you're gonna go normal Rabina, you're gonna go grab the Eagle, and then you're gonna Eagle grab Impin, and you're gonna tribute both of those for the Impin, and then you're gonna go search, and then add one of these back. Then for the other little birds, we're going to play 1 Tonkin and 1 Stree. So I've seen in the past that some people have decided to like mess around with the ratios on these cards. They've played more Tonkin to have a better grind game. They played more Stree just in the formats where the graveyard is more reliant. I don't think that either of those is like really correct, because neither of these cards do anything on their own. And I just think that if you want these cards, you can just go search them out. So yeah, but I will say I did in the lines of Street, I did think about like main decking 1 DD Crow, just to have something to be able to go and hit Grunixes out of the graveyard, hit Big Welcomes out of the graveyard, hit the furniture pieces out of the graveyard. But I just didn't think that was super necessary with the other cards that I was playing in the deck. So I didn't want to play like, a whole bunch of cards that just make this kind of like a pseudo graveyard control deck. I just don't think that's Flu's strong point. So that's it for the Flu Little Birds, your little level 1s. I do play 2 of the Samord Bird of Perfection. So this card is kind of your way to beat Ash, and you're going to see with the way that I built this deck is that I wanted to play cards that specifically beat hand traps. And so cards like Shifter naturally are just going to go ahead and beat Drolls, and they're going to beat Veilers. They just can't be activated under Shifter because they have to be sent to the graveyard as cost. And then the Samord Bird is going to give you a really good way to beat Ash Blossom on your Robin or on your Eagle. So I do think this card is just like super powerful for doing that. I don't play the Filled Spell. If you played the Filled Spell, if you hard open this card with Robin, you can beat Ash on Robin and Eagle, then on your Impin. So it just like kills an Ash in their hand. But I didn't think playing the Filled Spell was super necessary. I think it's another card in an already inconsistent deck that just adds more inconsistency. So I think just playing these 2, and also it's like a relatively big body. It's a winged beast, but while it's on the field, it's also a wind, so that plays with Featherstorm. So that's it for the little birds. Now the big tributes, I do double Impin, 1 Ryza, and then 1 Apex Avian. I feel like this is pretty standard at this point. I know a lot of people like to play 3 M-Pin. I don't. It's another brick that when you don't see your baby birds with M-Pin, it's just another brick that sits in your hand. So I didn't want to add more inconsistency. That's going to be a really big trend with this deck list, is that you don't want to like reach in and play more cards that don't add to its consistency beyond the base engine that you already play, right? So 1 Ryza, 1 Avian, pretty standard at this point. I have thought about maybe bumping Ryza up to 2 and then putting the Avian in the side deck, because I don't think Avian comes up that much at all in game 1s. So we'll have to see about that. But I think this is still correct at this point, because Evenly has become a pretty popular card at this in this time, and you kind of don't want Evenly to just blow you out. And then the best card in the deck, 3 Shifter. So you're going to hear me say this a little bit, 33%. So when you play a 40 card deck and you play 3 copies of Shifter, 33% of the time you're going to open this card. So what I like to say is that Flu has FTK capability 33% of the time. And it is because of this card. This card's super powerful. I don't think this card is fair, and I don't think this card should be legal, but that is not my decision. And if Konami decides that this card should still be legal in the game, we're going to play it and we're going to take advantage of it, because, you know, other people have the advantage of being able to go out and affording these really expensive cards. So we'll just pick up our 3 common shifters at about 15 cents a piece and hope and pray that we draw it as much as we can. So that's it for the monsters. Now get into the spells. Just kind of standard stuff here. 3 map. Really good piece to, you know, keep your Flu engine and extend your Flu engine during your turn, banishing your Flu cards from your deck during your turn, and then during your opponent's turn, giving you additional normal summons to keep playing the game. Have really good interruptions for your opponent. Then I have 3 copies of Advent. Thankfully, this card finally got his reprint in the 10s last year. I think this card's like, 75 cents to $1 at the moment, but this card's really good, beating out Imperms, beating out Veilers. So, and then also just having more access to your map is really good. This card also, just for some reason, Konami decided to like just give Flu a time condition, which I thought was pretty strange, but you know, if Konami wants Flu to be able to win in time as well, I'm all here for it. Then 1 copy of Unexplored Winds. I really like this card. So this card is basically your best removal in this deck. And then also it does have that little extra added ability that, like, if you are, and there have been times when I've tested this deck that you'll have like Unexplored Winds and then double tributes, and then you can just go Unexplored Winds, put 2 back, and hope that you can draw into a Robin, maybe a map and another little bird, and just try and play the game at that point. But this card is so good. I know, I believe it was Ryan Yu at one point when he was playing Flu. I think it was coming around Nats format last year. He was playing Flu, and he had played 3 copies of this card. Now, I didn't have the power in me to go out and play 3 copies of this card, but he must have saw something in it. He is a much better player than I am, and he saw something in that card that was really broken. So, but I think just the 1 of this is fine for now. So that's it for like the Flu base spells. And then for our pots, let's see, we have Triple Prosperity. Rarity Collection did give us this card at a really cheap price point right now. If I'm not mistaken, I think the supers are like 4 to 5s a piece right now. So you can get a playset of these for like $12, $15 in that general range, which is much better than what it was at before the reprint and Rarity Collection, with that card, this being like a $40 card. So thankfully now we don't have to just play like Extrav and Duality and have no Prosperity, which is just a better Duality at that point. But yeah, so I really like this card. Thankfully, we can now play it in our budget Flu decks. Then we have Triple Duality. This is Baby Prosperity. Kind of does what Prosperity does. It doesn't really, like this card, it really is just Prosperity divided by 2 in this deck. So really cool. And then 1 Extra. I really wanted the, like 1 extra pot spell that I could go into. Now, you can't do the Prosperity and the Extra in the same turn, but it still is just another card that is just Pot of Greed in this deck. Your extra deck does not matter at all. Then the kind of like non-engine that I decided to play Triple Talents. Hand traps are really, really popular in the format right now, kind of like pre-Phantom Nightmare. I don't know if that'll change that much, but if you start to see people go to more board breakers because people see that like the Change of Hearts, the droplets, snatch steals, those kind of, and enemy controllers are better against the fire deck, then you'll probably see this card come out of the deck at that point. Because the fire decks, honestly, post Phantom Nightmare, they like their interaction points with Flu are so different because like Promethean Princess, like Flu decks are never special summoning, so Princess is never coming out of the graveyard. So against the Fire King deck, for them to be able to bring the Garunix out of the grave, go pop another Kieran from deck, and then bring the Arvada back out, they're gonna have to have a Kieran in their hand for them to be able to do that. So I believe that like this card really just like, it kind of has very weird interactions against the fire deck because you're really just like battling up against an SP and like some back row. But I do like this card for the hand traps. If you do brick and you activate like a duality, they draw you there, you can just go talents, you can look at their hand, try to hit the best card out of their hand, hope they can't kill you, and that's just what you're kind of playing with there. But talents is a super strong card right now. One called by. So kind of going in the same vein, I think the most popular card that I see out and about right now that is very good in the format is Droll. Thankfully, Shifter does stop the Droll, but you're not always going to see your Shifters. And when you go first, you still want to be able to go through with your combos. So just having this extra called by for the Drolls, or even for any other hand traps that your opponent has, or if they don't hand trap you at all, you can just set it, and it's a really good defensive card in the meta right now. One terraforming. This is just for more consistency in the deck. I really want to see my map, and I want to get my cards up and moving. So I decided to play one terraforming. And then the one Flu Trap, the Dreaming Town. This card's broken. The Book of Eclipse effect, that comes on this card gets even better post Phantom Nightmare, because when your opponent goes like normal summon Ash, search Populous effect, summon itself, Populous effect, go search, then you can go Dreaming Town. And then setting an Ash and a Populous face down is really powerful because like they do still get the search for the original, but they have no face-up cards on the field. And then at that point, like they have no way to like use their Ash effect that is already on the field, and they've already used their normal summon. So like this card can honestly just do a lot of damage into normal summon Ash into the Populous. So I really do like this card in that vein. And then the last main deck card is Triple Evenly. So right now, pre-Phantom Nightmare, this card is absolutely busted. The fire decks, Fire Kings mainly, and Rescue Ace, they're not putting up Omni Negates on the field at the moment, especially Rescue Ace, since they lost Isolde. They lost their main combo to get into Baron, which was their one Omni Negate. So none of these decks are really putting up Omni Negates at the moment, except for like Mana Diem, which that's already just an awful matchup for this deck. I hope you win the die roll, or just see Shifter often. But with this card in general, like against Labby, this card's really good against Labby. This card's really good against Fire Kings right now. This card's really good against Rescue Ace. So any deck that when they go first, if they're not putting up Omni Negates, this card's just going to cook. So I really do like this card into the format right now. So I thought about playing just like 3 Ash Blossom, but I think that card is just very low impact when that is the only hand trap that you're playing. Sure, it does give you a little bit better of a matchup against Labby, and it does give you a little bit better matchup against Brandon, but I don't think that like just those on their own is going to help you out that much. And I think that this card is going to like clean up pretty well against Labby and Brandon, a lot better than just one Ash Blossom is going to do. So I do like this card a lot. So that is it for the main deck. It is 40 cards. You got to keep it at 40 so we can see Shifter as often as possible. So for the extra deck, I'm going to tell you what this is. So this is a extra deck that is just for Fire Kings at the moment. You don't need your extra deck in Flu. We're on a budget, so we're not really trying to like stretch out and go get like Zeus's and everything like that. If you do have access to Zeus, please like put it in your extra deck. But the extra deck really just never comes up. It like comes up every like maybe like 100 games or so. But just doesn't happen. So I don't think that, and especially since we're on a budget, just if you got 15 extra deck cards laying around, throw it in there because you need to be able to activate your Prosperities and your Extravagance. So side deck, 3 Die-Fi. Shifter is really good, so we need Shifter Light. This card stops Drolls, this card stops Veilers, and this card also is just a really impactful floodgate to sit down on the field and stun out most of the decks in the format. Like I said, we need to play the most unfair cards that we possibly can. This is a very unfair card against the Fire King deck. This is a very unfair card against Mana Diem. This is a very unfair card against Rescue Ace. So we're going to play as many of these cards as possible. Konami allows us to do that, and that's what we're going to do. But also, like I said, this card does function as like a like a pseudo called by, just because it does stop hand traps same way that Shifter does. That's kind of the main reason for having that in there, is that like you can, like, it's a powerful floodgate to like stun your opponent's deck, but also like it lets your deck play better under hand traps. Then triple enemy controller. I thought about playing the like Change of Hearts, the Snatch Steals, but I wanted like a Change of Heart or a Snatch Steal that was a little bit better for my deck. This deck does have a problem with like imperms. It's kind of like targeting negation like that, and enemy controller plays through those so well, because not only are you going to be able to like tribute your birds off and take an opponent's monster, but your bird effects are still going to resolve. So I think this card is super, super powerful, super underrated right now. I wouldn't be surprised, even like post Phantom Nightmare, to see this card make a comeback, kind of the way that it did, I believe it was YCS Indy, where Steven Santoli won with Rescue Ace, and he was main decking triple Econ. I could see that very well being an option coming into the post Phantom Nightmare format. I think this card's super, super powerful right now. So there's the Econs, and then triple Cosmic. This card just has such incredible utility right now. But Labby really isn't that good of a matchup for this deck. And like I said, where we're at right now, I do think that Labby is probably the best deck in the game, because the fire decks haven't gotten their great support, but Labby has gotten transaction rollback, which is what that deck needs. So you're going to need as many ways as possible to fight off Labby, and I really like this card against them, because you can kind of like, they go activate a trap, you chain this, prevent their lady from activating, and then get rid of another card. Banishing Big Welcomes is super powerful, because you can kind of use this to like break their cycle of Big Welcomes to like stop everything in their graveyard from activating. But also like the Die-Fis are pretty decent against Labby, because you can shut off their furniture pieces. Then double Lightning Storm and a Feather Duster. I'll put these all together because they kind of do the same things. Lightning Storm is another card for Labby, and this card is just like a really good board breaker in general. Kind of handles like back row decks, because like Flu does have like a general, in general, a difficult time against back row decks. And then the one Feather Duster, same thing there. I think these cards are just generally powerful. Thankfully for Rarity Collection, we now have our Lightning Storms at like, less than $1 a piece for the supers. And then the last card in the deck, you want to talk about unfair. This is probably the most unfair thing that Flu can do, is activate a trap card that says your opponent cannot activate monster effects this turn. This card also got reprinted in Rarity Collection. I believe before Rarity Collection, this card was still sitting at like $3, $4, $5 a piece. Now you can go and pick these things up for like 10 cents a piece. So this card, when you go first, every single time you're just putting this card in your deck and you are just shotgunning it as close as you can. There are even times that if you just open up Eagle plus this, you just do not care, because you go normal to Eagle, you go search, and then you set your Feather Storm, and then you Feather Storm, you got another turn to just keep living and going. So that is it for the main side and extra deck. So, like I said, I hope you guys can like kind of look at this deck. If you're on a budget and you don't feel like spending, $100 a piece on Wantage, you don't feel like spending, I believe the Bonfires are like $75 a piece right now. And if you don't have an SP right now, you can kind of look at this deck and just be like, this is something that is $50 to $60. It has a really high power ceiling. It does have a consistency issue, but you kind of have to make concessions where you can when you're on a budget. That's just the way that things work. When you're on a budget, most of the time you're not going to get the cream of the crop. But with enough play testing and enough practice with this deck, I do think that you can take it to a locals. I think you could even take it to a regionals and go get your regional top with it. Go to a locals, compete well, maybe win some store credit, win some boxes, and try and get these cards that'll help you like improve your decks, improve your budget a little bit more. Maybe you can go get enough store credit to go buy you an SP at the store, or at your local card shop. But anyways, guys, so thanks for watching the video. Come back here soon, and I'm going to start looking into the Voiceless Voice deck. I'm going to start looking into a budget Fire King deck that I will play at a case tournament that is coming up next weekend. So tune back in next time for that. All right, thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.